Okay, so continuing with our coverage of the Java selection structures. The last video ran a bit long, so I didn't get to the switch, so I'm going to do that now. And we're going to actually redo our version and kind of make a new version of our, what do you call it, survey program about party affiliation that we used in the last video. So I'm going to kind of get double duty out of this. In the last video, we used a cascading if structure, and we created a simple menu where the user would indicate by a letter what their choice was. And recall that in the code, we actually used the equals ignores case, so they could really just use an upper or lowercase d, r, or I. And then, of course, the fourth choice, we didn't know what their affiliation was. So this time I'm going to make a numeric list where they can have numbers, and I'll show you range checking and a couple other things. And you know, it's never bad to plagiarize yourself, so I'm going to copy my own code here and use it in this program. So the basic idea is the same as before. We want to find out what the party affiliation of the user is, and that's a political party. And in addition to the Democrat, the Republican, and the Independent, we're going to add the Green and Libertarian Party in. And we're not going to use an if-then-else structure. We're going to actually use a switch structure. And I always get mixed up with this because I know too many languages, and in JavaScript this is called select. And it is a selection structure, that's a more general term. You know, while I'm thinking about this, maybe we should copy a bunch more of the program. So let's go up here and look. So we're going to have the party affiliation, we're going to use the scanner again, we're going to use that prompt there. Let's see. Yeah, let's just go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and grab all of this. And now when you copy code like this, you have to be careful. So I'm going to move over here. And I think that's the end of my main, which I don't want to copy that. That'll screw up. So see how I've got the stuff within main, but not the brace. So Control C to copy that. I'll pop on over here to my switch demo. I'm in the right place. Control V to paste. And so now NetBeans is telling me that I don't have that import for that. So that's okay. I'll get that here in a second. I think it might have just put it in for me. Let's take a quick, yeah. You can tell by the code not showing an error. So it went ahead and did the scanner even though I didn't copy it. Okay, so what's different about this is we're going to use the numeric menu and we're going to add some more choices. And so I'm still going to read the party affiliation in, but it won't be a string. I'm actually going to go ahead and make this party affiliation an integer. And of course that can't be it has to be changed now so it matches the type. So we'll set that to 0. Okay? All right. Let's fix our menu real quickly. So just because they happen to be in this order and not suggesting any kind of ranking, I'm going to put these in. And now I'm going to grab this because I want to copy it several times. Control V. And we'll make number 4 the Green Party. And we'll make number 5 the Libertarian Party. I guess we could put the Tea Party and the Coffee Cup Party in too if we wanted. But I think 6 will probably be enough choices here. Let's go with the, let's see, I got the Greens, the Libertarians. Yeah, what the hell, we'll do the Tea. So Tea. We don't really say Tea, so I'll just say Tea Party. Okay, now this part needs to be changed. Now, one of the things I did very carefully here is I made sure these numbers were in a range. So there's no intermediate numbers, there's no missing numbers. So now I can say enter choice, and I'll put these little square brackets in here because that's kind of the way we do this. 1 through 6. Okay, so that's going to be my menu. And now notice this party affiliation in.next line. That doesn't work because next line reads a string and party affiliation is now an integer. And notice the NetBeans message. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to read that in the video. It says incompatible type. String cannot be converted to int. So party affill has to be an int. So I just have to change this to be next int. Okay, and then now this part is going to change completely, and I want to just keep my output message. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this. Let's see, actually, I'm sorry. I'm just going to delete this part here, and we'll start using our case structure. Okay, so the way the case structure does is it works like this. You say switch, and the name of the variable you're going to switch on is going to be party affill. Let's see, I always have a little bit of an issue with getting this going here. So let's see. Oh, does it take a, might take parens. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Sometimes I get in trouble when I go from memory. This is not a structure I use all the time because you don't always have a situation where you have this many choices, right? Okay, let's take a quick look. So output message is there. Why doesn't it like that line? Oh, just because the code isn't there yet. Okay. All right, so watch what's going to happen now. So we're going to have a series of cases. And so this first case is case colon 1. Do I have that right? Case 1 colon, that's it, yeah. It's so funny that I can't remember how to do this. And let's see. I guess I'll go ahead and indent that, make it look good. Okay. And you know what? I need to put a block here too for the whole thing. Okay. So basically what we're going to have is we're going to have a case for each option. I've completed the first case. Let's look back at the menu. If the user enters 1, then the output message is you get a Democratic donkey. Okay? And so now I'm just going to quickly fix the rest of these cases. And so this is going to be case 2. All right? Let's see. You know what? I don't need to have the blocks in here. Just a moment. Okay, back from a real quick Google. I'm sort of embarrassed, but I forgot some of the syntax for how this stuff works. So let me just fix it real quick, and then I'll go over it with you here. So what happens is each case ends with a break statement, which will jump out of the selection block. So there's the first case. Now it's done correctly. It's actually really good to leave these in, although now instead of a D, it'll be that number, right? So this will be 1, and then we'll have 2 for Republican. So again, this is going to be case 2 colon, and we set the output message, and then we put in a break to end the case. So each case ends with the keyword break. There's some trickiness to this that I'm not going to go into. I'll just present this in a straightforward way. And then, so we'll just continue here. And so I just need to check my menu and make sure that I've got this in order. This is not the most efficient way to code this particular problem. And later on, when we learn how to do arrays, we'll refactor this in a way that makes it kind of automated. So it'll generate everything for you, and all you'll have to do is add the choices. And we'll actually create a looping program that will essentially do a survey where the user or users can answer as often as you want, and then when they indicate they are done, it'll give us the result. So what it'll do is it'll count kind of like votes for the choices. So how many people are Democrat, how many people are independent, etc. Now, interestingly enough, whenever I do that, I always, okay, so these are going to have to be regenerated now. So, okay, now I'm going to keep that output message there because that's actually going to be my default. So that'll be if the user enters something other than the choices. And I'll show you we can actually constrain the input so it's a valid vote if we want. So we're going to do a number of things here. I hope I'm being coherent for you. All right, I need to pop up and look here at my menus. This is the Green Party. So let me just copy. You know what? I should just copy the whole thing here and add the new cases. Okay, so let's do case 4. By the way, you see that error? You can't have the same case twice. Now what you can do is if you want to combine cases, you can do 3, 4, and then have one code block that's common for both values. Okay? All right, so 4 is green. So I have to change the message here. And hey, let's be really funny. You are a green man. Any of the pagans there in my audience will get a little joke out of that, I'm sure. All right, well, I think maybe. I'm not sure, I guess. Most pagans have a good sense of humor. Green man is a sort of forest spirit. Okay, libertarian is number 5. So, whoops. Yeah, there we go. So you get, we'll just say you are a libertarian. Like I mentioned, later on we'll refactor this in a much more object-oriented way. But this will work for now, and mainly I wanted to show you this massive switch structure here. As I mentioned in JavaScript, this is a select structure. All right, Tea Party is our last one. And we'll just say you belong to the Tea Party. Okay, now, remember how on our if then else, do I have that open yet? Yeah, sure, let me pop over there. So as I mentioned, I told you when you have a finite number of mutually exclusive choices, if you've chosen n-1, then you know that if you've checked n-1, then you know the choice has to be n. And so we never have an if at the last part, it's always an else. Because I've got 4 choices here. Let's just call them A, B, and C. So if I've done A, I've done B, and I've done C, then the only other choice is D. So I don't test here. I just assume that that's the last value. The select structure works the same way, the switch structure, pardon me, only we have what's called default, okay? So this default will come up every time for any value that's not 1 through 6, okay? And let's see, I don't know if we need a break here or not. I think you do, so I'll go ahead and put it in. Yeah. All right, so looks good. We have the switch. I guess most people don't usually put a space there. And let's just make sure. Yep, so it's all matching up. Okay, now look at this. So this would be a real pain in the ass to write with if then else. The code's much cleaner. It's pretty easy to see. Also, I now have a numeric menu. So the user's going to put a number in. And when they put the number in, I'll use nextInt to read that. Now, if you're really sharp, before when I showed you how to use the scanner, I showed you that that could cause a problem. So just think for yourself for a minute, what's the problem that causes when we read a number in from the system? All right, and then basically now we'll just go ahead and print out our output message. Okay, so let's go ahead and try and run this and we'll see what happens. And oh, and I forgot I can do range checking too, so we'll add that in too. Okay, so here's our new menu. Instead of trying all of them, I'm going to try the first, the last, and then we'll try some of the other options. So there's number 1. It says you get a Democratic donkey. Good. Okay, let's run it again. And the last choice that's on the menu is 6, which is the Tea Party. So I'll put 6 in. It says you belong to the Tea Party. So I'm pretty sure that the other ones will work, and really to test it thoroughly, I would test each one. I don't need to do that for you while you're watching the video, though. But you really should do that for work that you're doing in your class. One thing you can do, it'll still work if you forget a break. If you forget a break, what will happen if I forget this break here, the 6 will run down to the default. Well, that's not a good example. Let's say I forget the break here. Basically, if I get a 5, it'll run through with the 6, and they'll both pick up this option. So that's one possible bug that you could do by coding it wrong. Okay, let's run it again. So what happens when we try a value that's too high? How about 9? That's not a choice. It says, I have no idea what you are. Okay, so that's working. So I'm going to run it one more time, and now I'm going to try it without a number, and you should be able to guess what will happen. So I put K in, I mistyped, and it breaks. And so I get an exception, and the program terminates, and again, that means that the program is not bulletproof. And so if I look here, again, it shows me the type of error, Java util input mismatch exception. In this case, the mismatch is that I gave it a string when it was looking for a number, and then it tells me where the line in the code is. That's at the very bottom there. See that? switchdemo.java, that's the name of my file, and 32 is the line, and there's where I'm reading the number in. Okay, so if you've been paying attention to the video sequence, and hopefully I'll cover this in class as well, when we do numeric input, it's best if we test it to see if we've got the right kind of input. So I'm going to go ahead and put a if block here, if, and then in.has next int. And really what that means in English is if it's safe to read an integer from this input stream, which is called in, then go ahead and do it. Okay? Now what's weird is I'm going to actually do everything here, right? So that all this code goes in the if block. And what's going on here? Let's see. It looks like I introduced an extra brace again. Oh, I didn't close this yet. Right, I didn't finish, that's why. Okay. So again, basically, if this is true, I want to do all of this through this right, and then I want to put in an else right here, and then that's going to be a block 2. And then I also still need to fix my block that I missed, which is the main. Okay, so now my code's all balanced out, and so now what's happening is I can do the SOUT tab. You must enter a number, and usually I'll just echo the prompt like that. So I already told the user that they have to enter a number between 1 and 6. Okay? So now they can't break the program. All right, let's try it again. And again, I'll try some crap here that should break. It doesn't break. It says you have to enter a number. We run it again, and now I'm going to hit a number that's not valid. So I'll hit 9 again, and it just defaults to I don't know what you are. Okay? So I've kind of coded this where I'll take any value. If I wanted to constrain this so the user could only hit the values between 1 and 6, there's a way for me to do that too. Okay? So think about the logic of this. The first test is to see if we got a number. If we have a number, then we read it. Then I'm going to have another test. Now before I put this in, let me format my code. And I'm going to go ahead, because all this needs to be indented because it's in a block, right? So I'm real particular about indenting my code as I go, because then it's easy for me to read. And so again, the entire switch statement needs to be, and that needs to be indented. Okay? All right, let's come on back. Okay, so right here at this point, I'm reading the input, and then I can just go ahead and test to see if the input is correct. And so now I'll just say if party fill is less than 1, which is the low end, and then we do the OR, and the OR is this. So that's a logical OR. That's a symbol that means OR. In our pseudocode, we just wrote the word OR, right? So if the party affiliation is less than 1, or now in English I would just say or greater than 6, but in Java you can't write it that way. You have to write it as a binary. So you have to repeat party fill is greater than 6. Okay? So basically what this does is it tests the range. And whenever you test a range, you test to see if you're less than the low end of the range or greater than the high end of the range. And don't be an idiot here. You should just write this in a natural way. So test the low range on the left and the high range on the right, like I did here. It just makes the code easy to read. Okay, so now what happens is if this is true, we go ahead and compute the output message and display it. Okay? And that's going to end right there. And notice how NetBeans pops that up. So that's that expression I just wrote. So I know I'm in the right place. Now it's kind of weird, but I can go ahead now and put the else in here. And it's just going to be another single statement where I'll basically say the same thing that I did here. That's the cleanest way to do that, okay? I could restructure the code so I only had one output and it was either the message or the error message, but I think it's a little better to structure it like this. Okay, so now I've basically hard-coded the logic, so the only time the switch will come into play is when the 1 and the 6, the value is within the range of 1 to 6. So it should never use the default message. And so in this case now, this is not a message to the user. This is going to be an error message to me as the programmer. Error, invalid party fill val. And then, of course, since I'm doing that, I might as well tell myself what that party affiliation val is. And then we'll just say plus party fill. Okay? So not only will it actually show that message, but it'll show me what the error is. Now, there's actually no way to trigger that. So that's just some default code. And when I have a situation like this where I'm never going to get anything other than 1 through 6, I sometimes will put this in like I did here. But there's no way to even test this because the logic will not call the switch unless it's within this range. Okay? So if the party fill is less than 1 or greater than 6, this won't work. Let's see, is that right? Oh, you know what? I coded it wrong, didn't I? Do you see what I did? I did it the opposite. So this says if party fill is less than 1, which means it's out of range, or if it's greater than 6, run the code. I wrote that in the opposite way. So really what I want to say is if party affiliation is greater than or equal to 1, or and let's see, and party affiliation is less than, let's see, yeah, less than or equal to 6. Okay. I usually don't code that like that. What I'll do is I'll just increase the range. So what I would say instead would be if party fill is greater than 0 and party fill is less than 7. Okay, you see what I did? I just added a 1 to each range so I could use those operators. But it's probably better to write it this way because then it shows the actual range and you don't have to worry about off by 1 errors. That happens a lot in programming where you'll get confused about the end of a boundary or something. Okay, so what do we do? We started out with a program that uses a numeric value, and we just did raw input, which meant that the program wasn't bulletproof. Then we fixed the program to check to see if we got a number, and then it couldn't be broken. And then we also went on a little bit further and did what's called range checking. So when I have a number, I can check to see if it's in a range. And so now I've checked this. There's no way to get this default option here. It'll always be 1 through 6. So let's just run this a few more times. And first we'll run our endpoints to make sure that it works. So I'll do 1. That works. I got the donkey. And then I'll do 6 for the tea party. And that works. So I got the tea party. Now I'll try one less and 1 more. So if I enter 0, it says I have to enter a number between 1 and 6. So it doesn't use the default anymore in the switch statement, but it forces me to pick a number within range. Real quickly, let's just try 7 to make sure that if I pick a number that's too high, it also works. Okay. I hope this is coherent. Let me just go over it one more time just to make sure. So again, we're printing out a list. It's numbers. We made sure that the numbers were all in sequence, so 1 to 6. We tell the user we want a value from 1 to 6. And then we check to see if we got a number, so that keeps us from having the program break when the user typos by accident. It gives us something that can't be a number. And then we went further and said, okay, well, let's force the range to be correct as well. So the first thing we do is we look to see if we have a number. If we don't have a number, we go to this outer else here and we print out, you must enter a number. Oops, looks like that needs to be indented there, by the way, doesn't it? Let's see what's going on here. Yeah, this all needs to be indented. Okay, it's really important to indent your code well, so let me do that because I want you to do that in your work. I think that will get it. Yeah, right there. Okay. All right, so again, here's the switch. There's the end of the switch. That's actually could come out a bit. You see how I try to line these up? See? And then, okay, so and this should come out here. Yep. There we go. Shift tab to outdent. There we go. So now it's starting to look better. And then finally, this outermost if right here matches this else. Let's move that. You see how those are lined up? That's how you want them to line up, okay? Now this can be brought out as well. So Shift Tab to outdent, and we're good to go. And also I tend to code these like this instead of putting it on the same line. Okay? So again, first test, do we have a number? If we do, we proceed. If we don't, we print out a message to the user and the program ends. Then, second test, is the number in range? If it is, then we go along and switch along those lines, figure out the output, and go ahead and do it. If it's not, then we again prompt the user to give us a number in range. Okay? So we're well on our way now to doing the bulletproofing. It's always an option to terminate the program under control and tell the user run it again and do it right. Later on, we'll see when we know how to do looping that we can loop and force the user to continually do input until they give us input that's correct. So we don't move on until we get good input. Right now we haven't covered the loop, so we can't do that. Okay, this was a bit long, but I hope it was clear to you, and I hope this was helpful.